this one. Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my own Glottkin. It's Tom. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends.
I'm riding him around.
And I'm 3-1.
I was just gonna say, it's a tight fit.
You're the big brother. I'm like the spellcaster, and Doug is the warrior. What's up, Doug?
Wait,
we're all together.
Hey. I'm Gurk?
Yeah, you're Gurk.
I'm Gurk?
Yep.
Ah.
Yep.
Yeah.
How you doing today, Doug?
I'm doing good, thank you.
All right, Mr. 2+ Tough with us. Good to have you back on the show. It's been too long, as we learned at the beginning, for various reasons. We were a minute or two late, and that was completely my fault because I realized to remember to check audio levels at the last minute, and they weren't working. So we got that all fixed now. Hopefully everybody can hear us all right. I haven't heard anybody say, we can't hear you, and yet people are talking, so I'm going to guess we're okay. All right, so tonight we're going to talk about Grandfather Nurgle, but first, the no news.
Yep. Nailed it.
There it is.
There's a rumor engine. Let's start there.
Okay.
I think I know what this is, but you all go ahead.
Vampirates. Doug?
No.
So, about a year and a half ago, I gave up on trying to guess the rumor engines because they keep making specialist games. And so I'm going to go something far out there and say it is, as football is to fantasy battles, this is bowling to Age of Sigmar.
Nice.
We're going to have an Age of Sigmar bowling game. They're rolling the skull. That's what the picture is. It's going to be great.
There you go. I like it. I agree with that. It's like Blood Bowl, but it'll be bowl blood.
Ball.
Exactly.
No, it'll be blood bowling.
No, no, it'd be, sure, that works. I'm okay with either, frankly. I'm not going to die on that hill. I was about to argue with you, and I'm like, nah, that's good. All right, so Tom, you've got your clever idea here. Go ahead. What is it?
It's Night Hunt.
It's Night Hunt, okay?
This is Night Hunt. And you know what tells me this is Night Hunt more than anything else?
I'm ready.
The wrist.
Because it has a little baby wrist?
Because it looks breakable.
It looks breakable. Like I have painted many Night Hunt wrists.
Sure.
And let me tell you, that is how they do Night Hunt wrists.
Actually, that's true. Yeah, because that's how the guy with the lantern he looks just like that. Yeah, okay.
Yep. And so the wrist.
Do they normally have webbed fingers?
That's energy. That's not webs.
So he has webs.
No, it's not.
In between his index finger and his middle finger, that is a web. You can see the line right there.
Hold on, I'm looking him up right now. The guy with the lantern here.
I hear that. No, I'm saying
you could be right. So what does this fit in? Like a Night Hunt Warcry warband?
Possibly. Or this is. I mean, again, this is all speculation. We are a year out from my hypothetical reboot.
Uh-huh.
And so we're in the space where we probably have any new Night Hunt models that are coming. We probably have, prototype versions of them done.
What you're telling me is they watched our aesthetics review show where we revealed the results of our community survey and showed that Night Hunt had like the highest rating out of everything, and they were like, quick, rush some Night Hunt models into production. We are sitting on a gold mine here, people. We got
3 weeks to design, build, and paint it. Absolutely.
As an aside, one of our commenters, Dana, had said that Night Hunt don't have fingernails like that. The Morngul does, and
yes,
so
he does have a very Morngul-esque hand. I will agree with that.
And so this could very much be them bringing in the Morngul aesthetics into some of those elements back into Night Hunt.
Yeah, it's not very big because the hand is the same size as like a regular human skull. So this is not a large model.
Yep. And we're also like the flaming skull is like a thing.
Sure.
Like it's a thing within Night Hunt stuff. I mean, my entire Night Hunt army has converted flaming skulls.
I don't know if I would take skulls as evidence of anything in Warhammer.
No. Well, it's evidence of Warhammer. But getting more specific than that is impossible.
The flaming smoking skull.
Oh, yes.
No, like skulls themselves, you're right, no.
No,
But,
there's
like-
not at all a chaos sorcerer that I, painted a couple whatever back that literally has like 3 flaming skulls on his shoulders. But yeah, let's go with that.
But the combination of that with the rest of the hand aesthetics is what I'm saying is that this echoes Night Haunt. Now, whether this could be a new actual like part of the line or part like a war, like an Underworld's warband or a Warcry warband or just like who knows?
Yeah, sure.
But I'm saying it's something Night Haunt with the Night Haunt keyword. There we go.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to go with.
There you go.
I like it. Here's why I think it's vampires. Ready? And I'm excited about this because this tells me that the aesthetics for our new vampirates are not just going to be like Total War Vampire Coast vampirates, okay? But instead we're going to get weird, atrophied, like, skinny, creepy, old vampirates, like little, thin, rail, long fangs, long face, like, did you ever see What We Do in the Shadows, the remake of it or whatever in the first episode when they meet their boss? Whatever, it's fine.
Not yet, no.
It's an okay show. I don't particularly like it. But, and anyways, in episode 1, Doug Jones, a fantastic guy who's played every cool monster ever in the history of, things. He's like an old dude. He's one of those, like very atrophied, ribs sticking out, long face, sort of long, bony finger, long claws, vampires. Like, that's a vampire aesthetic.
Clearly not eating enough.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
It's just kind of like real old ancient vampires get that,
like
that thing in some mythos, right?
Yep.
So, and the fact that he's got a flaming skull, I've got an explanation for that too, okay? Ready?
Oh.
Okay.
Juju zombies. That's right, they're not just pirates, it's a Caribbean situation. We're back. We're going voodoo vampirates.
I'd be down for that.
Oh
I
my
also
God, I
could
would be
see it
so
as
down
like
for that.
well, I could see it also as being like a grenade, kind of like how the Nurgle guy has like the heads he tosses.
Yep.
Because it's also the same effect they do on the OBR with the catapult full of skulls or whatever it is, or one of those things.
I'm just saying, look, big bad voodoo pirates, and who are also vampires. Big bad voodoo vampires would be amazing. I don't know what sea they're sailing, but I'm all about it.
I'm not gonna say no.
Yeah, like, we need that kind of aesthetic worked into something. Again, it shouldn't be like a 1-to-1 import, okay?
Yes,
Sure.
of course.
Sure.
But, like, bringing some of that in the same way that they bring in... Yeah, we've imported a lot of different cultural aesthetics and markers into the various releases lately. So just give me some of that. It would be awesome. Anyway, that's what I want to see. I'm sure I'm wrong, but I would love it if I was right. Boy, would that be a called shot into left field. Just pointing.
I would love it if, like, for a month they did all these pictures, but they were close-ups of like a severed hand that was like on somebody's trophy rack, but we couldn't tell the difference, and so they're just showing off all these models. Oh, we got Night Haunt coming, we got Skaven, and it's just like all body parts on somebody else.
They did pull that at one point with what was it? Oh, like the heads on the back of the one of those Nurgle guys, I think, or whatever. They did that. They just showed like the trophies, and everybody was like, "Oh, it's going to be one of these things." Yeah, no, it's just a trophy. Anyway, other big news. One more piece of big news that isn't actually news yet.
Announcements.
Yeah.
We have a announcement show this Saturday.
Oh yeah.
Probably the first of the Nova, what would have been the Nova Open announcements.
Yep. I would imagine this is they haven't directly said this, but this has got to be part 1 of.
Oh God, yeah. They stretched the last one out for like 3 months.
Exactly.
I imagine they will too.
Yeah, and you were there last year with me, Doug. Nova's obviously a big reveal show.
Yes.
I'm sad we're not going to be there this year, but they had to see that, like, wait a minute, if we do this over 3 weeks, we get like 40,000 viewers for 3 weeks in a row. Everybody's dialed in, everybody's paying attention. And in the original announcement, they said something to the effect of, I'll paraphrase here slightly, but I'm in the right ballpark. They said, we have a lot, all capital letters or whatever, mounds, gore, tremendously huge amounts of stuff to show you. And we're going to show you part of it this Saturday. Like that was the exact, like close to the exact phrasing, right?
One pittance of a cornucopia of releases. Exactly. Yes. I hope that my only thing though with the way they did it last time was that I really want them to like stick the landing, because there was a few of the previews they did last time where like they ended on, and you can buy gift cards, and we're like that is the wettest fart I've ever heard.
Yeah,
for the ending of a of an ending of a talk.
Yeah, you got to have the big punch at the end, right? Leave them on a high note.
Exactly.
So this they put out like a little poster of what all is going to be on this, what all is going to be covered. There are 6 different things. They generally do 6 segments, 15 minutes each, over an hour and a half. This has all become like very predictable and rote. I would imagine, I agree with Rob, who guessed that the order they put them in, which is not in any other way sensible, is actually going to be the order they'll do them. Okay?
Sure.
Which is like Necromunda, Warcry, Underworlds. Don't remember what the 4th one is. A 40k thing. Oh, Horus Heresy. That's right. A thing I remember about. 40k and then AOS. Which maybe means we get the big ending if they learn from your lesson, Doug. Maybe. And then this is called like Shadow, Iron, and Broken Realms. So I know you're out of the prediction game. I know you're Doug, but here's my thoughts.
Oh, I could just say stuff. I just don't do it for my channel. On your channel, I can say whatever the hell I want.
That's right, you can. Now you're in the right place.
Yep.
So, do you have any thoughts, hopes, dreams, or wishes for this review, for this show?
Okay. So, if I could choose what I want this to be, because I think it's a plausible name, I want Broken Realms to be a campaign book, just like Wrath of the Everchosen, with Gordrak taking a God Beast skull and ramming it straight through Excelsis, which is kind of a narrative lead that we've had
for a while.
Yeah. And I want Destruction to get some time in the sun and get cool sub-faction rules, just like the other one. Like we're going to be talking about Wrath of the Everchosen tonight a little bit, but
Yep.
That kind of stuff for Destruction and maybe Death. Because Nighthaunt doesn't have sub-factions and those kinds of things, so.
But imagine if, like, Gloomspite got a bunch of sub-factions.
I know, that'd be so rad.
They'll put him in White Dwarf, don't worry, Tom.
And it'll be either broken or forgettable.
And then gone in 10 months.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what's important. So, yeah, I mean, the Shadow is pretty easy, right? Like, one has to believe that that's pointing at minimum, but not maybe in total, to the new Warcry Dark Elf thing, because they put up the Hammerhall Herald today for the Khainite Warcry Warband. They're like it's like, have you seen this Shadow Lady? It's like on the Hammerhall Herald.
Have you seen Lanissa?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So clearly, that's on the cards. That might not be the only Shadow thing we get, but I think that's at minimum. We'll see the rest of them. I hope that we actually see a new Doc book.
We will. Yeah. I'm calling it here. I'm putting the flag down. I think we'll see a new Doc book. We had rumors of a Doc book back in January, February that we reported.
Yep.
And it was towards the end of the year that we were told, and we're in that space now. I think that we're in the area to launch into the final quarter of the year. And so it wouldn't surprise me if we got that announcement here. It's actually where I would expect it. That said, because of COVID, all that stuff's up in the air. Any of that could get moved or pushed. So.
Sure.
Yep.
But I would love a new Doc book. The old Doc book was just it's out of whack in so many different ways. And I know people who don't play Doc and might have only played against Doc might be really angry at Doc for a lot of the things it was able to do with Hagnar and stuff. But it's actually not fun to play Doc armies. I think that's why their meta percentage dropped like a rock, because it's actually just legitimately in most cases not fun to just play the Force. It's very unidimensional.
You do one thing, you push things forward.
And there's just a lot of ways you can't build in. Like if you want to use Marathi or use a lot of the snake people, it's you just don't have command abilities.
Right.
They're just not
right.
there.
Because because you have to have you're absolutely right. Because right now, if anyone wants to use any command ability, they have to be the general in the army.
Right.
And for Marathi, if she's your general, not only does she not get a command trait, as soon as she transforms, she loses her command ability.
Right. Yeah. So it's a weird army. Anyways, Doug, you were saying. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you answered my question. I was going to ask for a little bit more info because I've only played against Daughter's Game twice.
Mhm.
Once was Chuck for a narrative thing, and then there was my local guy Ben for his first game because he just liked the models.
Sure.
So I was going to ask you what your concerns were, like as an elevator pitch, and you guys nailed it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I mean it's such an easy low hanging fruit to fix that army because there's not a ton of units. It's really out of whack internal balance. That's what I mean there, right? Like just way off kilter.
There's a couple like right answers.
Yeah.
And then there's like Kraith.
And then yeah, sure.
Sorry, Chuck.
No, it's fine. God
that
bless
said,
Chuck.
like, I mean, Kraith has to be better this time around.
Sure. It'd be so easy. It'd be like after they fight, roll a die on a 5+, they get to fight again. Like that's literally it would be the same exact rules text. You just move it from a 6 up to a 5 up, and suddenly I'm like, okay, now we're cooking with butter. Like this is suddenly a playable rule. Like the statistical relevance there of how often that triggers in a game shoots way up with just that one
Yes.
move.
Yep. Or if there was any way to modify that, like if 2 units charge plus 1, 3, 4,
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
Or like a leader who once a game could bonus it up by 1 or 2 or something like that, right? Just anything like that. Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say, Doug, was actually something similar to that. Is instead of doing it that way, you do a sequencing. So, like for every 1 you roll,
it gets
that doesn't do it. That doesn't trigger. The number goes down by 1.
Yeah.
So the first one you roll is like a 6 up. The second one that's in. The key is you have to have all these units in combat and still alive at the end of combat.
Yep.
Sure.
But if you have like 6 in, like, somebody is going to get it and then the number resets.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And it jumps back up to 6 and then it winds down and then jumps back up. Yeah.
Point is, there's lots of ways. Hopefully we see a new doc book. Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else so that's clearly the shadow. I think the Broken Realms thing, I hope, like, we're about at the end of the Soul Wars. Let's be honest. Like, Can we
please be?
Yeah, this has gone on long enough. We got it. Thank you. Okay. Time for a new narrative thing. I actually completely agree with you. It's going to be a destruction-based thing.
Well, actually, part of me what makes me think that is, I think I have it on my shelf up here, but basically the new artwork for Beastgrave, which is set in Gur, like a lot of that material can cross right over, and so like they already have a lot of the assets.
Yep. I'm
like, yeah, you've been working towards this, man. Just take me there. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the Broken Realms thing just feels like that's the new Soul Wars or whatever, right? That's the new narrative event that leads into the new Soul Wars, right? So in the same way we had something before that, this will be the lead up to it, right? You'll have Broken Realms lead to like, the Shattered Souls event or something like that, because it's always got to have some name like that in it. So whatever.
So follow-up question. What if Shattered Realms is another malign sorcery that sets up it was malign portents.
Yeah.
That was the
lead up.
It was the lead up thing. I like that book, but it didn't take very well with the community. But like that kind of thing, I would love that. But
sure, I think you're dead on. I think that's exactly what it'll be. Maybe this time just don't do a big countdown to the launch of a website with a single image on it. Just like throwing out ideas, GW marketing.
Well, and what I'll say is this, and I think it would track if, for example, you had Gordrak like obliterate Excelsius,
right?
Right, and then have him turn his sights on Azir. And so like the lead up event is basically demonstrating what the nuclear weapon does, and then
that makes sense.
And then what happens is that everybody turns their attention to it because they realize what he can actually accomplish, and then what I would guess is that then the launch of 3rd edition would correspond with probably like a destruction order box.
Sure.
That'd be cool.
With basically them trying to stem the tide of destruction as they march towards Azir. Yeah, so that they probably won't ever get there. But the key is that like they know the threat is credible. And so what he would probably do is be like, I'm marching towards Azir. Haha, all points. Smack. And he just destroys everything in all points.
I heard that orcs, if they destroy something, they get to attack immediately afterwards. And so they're all like, oh, crap, Excelsius just blew up.
My personal feeling on it is I would just love to see anything kind of destruction focused. I think that'd be super
absolutely.
cool. So, and it feels like and breaking things is something destruction likes to do. So there you go. I'm calling it. I think you're absolutely right. Again, just please no more countdown clocks to nothing. Okay, so I mean, it's just terrible. Okay. So, and yes, I do agree. The new Sons of Behemoth would sort of fit right into that well, right? Because you got these big, stompy giants.
Yep.
So
you killed our dad
that's
in the first chapter, I guess.
I guess,
kind of.
sort of, yeah.
Whatever we're calling these.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically the news. It's pretty short because, and will we do a show on Saturday? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. Tom might be out. I might do a show alone. I might rope somebody else into it.
I'm going to be doing one.
There you go. There you go. And I know Rob is doing like a 12-hour stream that day, so we'll see what happens. We'll see if the news is worthy of actually jumping on.
Rob from Honest Wargamer?
Yeah. They're doing
okay.
like a 12-hour stream that day, yes.
Cool.
To raise money for their new T-Sports equipment stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, pick of the week stuff. Doug, what do you got to share? Let's go to some pick of the week.
Pull it up here. So I was a little late to the party for it, but I just watched it earlier in the week. And my pick of the week is Goobertown Hobbies put out a video called Clever Strategies for Painting Warhammer Armies. And he takes 10 Necrons from the Indominus set and just shows you really, really interesting ways to put down like base colors. But what's interesting is that it's a painting tutorial that never mentions like a brand of paint. And the reason I like that is because you're just teaching people like, hey, for Necrons in specific, for those of you who don't know, like they're almost all silver traditionally. So you just paint the entire thing a specific color, and then you can go back in and pick out, the gun bits and the basing and that kind of stuff separately. So I just thought that was phenomenal because it's what I tell people is just paint it one color and then just pick everything else out. Like, because this whole time I'm watching this video, I'm like, this is amazing. This would be perfect for Chaos Warriors. And then you just go back and you just get like the fur on their cape or something. And and so I thought that was awesome. I'm also I have to give a shout out to my boys at Rerolling Ones. They're doing a narrative campaign as well. So had to slip that second one in there.
That's all right. We don't mind. I will link both down in the description. Tom, you're eating your chips in between you talking. We're on to you, Tom. We're on to your chip eating. What's your pick, Tom? Chew quickly.
Also, while you're chewing, I'm going to judge you for having 2 bottles of Dr. Pepper in the back there, bro.
Oh, those are empty. So.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to imagine you just crushing them right before we went live.
You have no idea. I think I have some.
Just a fistful of chips and a bunch of Dr. Pepper. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. So a friend of the show. This is obviously going to tie into the content of the show. Thanks to Paul Conti for timing this so well. He dropped a video today on starting your Maggotkin of Nurgle army, and so I want to encourage you to check it out. It's about a 30-minute show, and Paul offers a lot of kind of like helpful advice.
Yeah, it's good. I watched it right before actually watched it right before this just to make sure that to see what he had to say. And it is nice because he covers the base book and then also talks about expansion stuff. And that's going to be a big part of what we talk about is like Nurgle is beyond huge. I like, we'll get into it when we get into it, but I cannot imagine being a new person rolling up to this faction and then like playing it normally out of the book. And then like somebody's like, oh, why didn't you use this stuff? What? And then you learn there's like 7 other books with things you can use. So real revelation for you.
Beasts of Chaos.
Yeah.
And
yeah, exactly. And yes. Okay. My pick of the week. So our good buddy Sam Lenz, a fantastic and amazing painter. He has started up his YouTube channel. He has a Patreon where he's been doing a lot of stuff and teaching people and things like that, doing private coaching. But now he started putting some stuff up on YouTube, and he put up his first video. I'll link it down below. It's real great. He goes through, he's actually painting the hull of a knight armiger, the little baby knights. And he's doing it all without an airbrush. It's all brush painting. So,
I don't know how to respond to that.
And it's beautiful. It shows you that if you get out a big enough brush, you can go to town. So there you go. He takes you through it and makes something amazing. He walks through all his steps and his wet blending and his battle damage and the whole shooting match. So go check him out. Give him a sub. Encourage him to post up more stuff. He's a great dude. So there you go.
That's
all
awesome.
that will be linked below. All right. Let's talk about some hobby time. Doug, what have you been working on, man?
So recently I got a boatload of Beasts of Chaos because I want to build a Pestilent Throng for the Nurgle army.
Nice.
Because I've settled into my Nurgle like list, or at least the direction I like to play with the army, and so they are a good complement to that. In theory, we will find out in practice.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know
So,
how much I favor the Pestilent Throng, but that's. I'll be interested to see your results.
It's not about the rules. It's about taking 80 dudes who can run very fast. Like the actual battalion rules, haven't even looked at them. Could not care less. You're there to die.
Yeah, super fair. I get that.
So, yeah.
They do that well. Run very fast is a thing that beasts will do. They don't hit many bars with a lot of clearance, but move real fast across the table is one of them.
Yeah,
well,
so
and especially with the rest of the Nurgle buffs.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and so I've been building like 75% way painted through 30 Ungor, and then got some Vestigore and that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So that's a lot of progress. Tom, we're ready, Tom. We're ready to hear what you've been working on, buddy. Here we go.
I have been selling things.
Still selling
That's good
stuff
progress. Doug approves.
I'm sure Doug does. He has some wonderful Nurgle on his table.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah, so I'm just still liquidating models, slowly but surely.
Okay. Well, Tom, I
Nice.
expect you to have something painted at some point when you get back from your vacation or whatever.
Someday.
Maybe put a model on the table and get something painted. You have models sitting behind you. I can see them. There should just be paint on those.
Those are more Nurgle things I'm selling.
Darn it, Tom. All right. So, for myself, it's been a very productive week. I finished up my Loon Boss on Cave Squig as part of the marathon. I'll post him up this weekend. That was such a fun model to paint. That is like one of the most characterful, wonderful models they've released in a while. Absolute joy.
Yep.
Joy to paint that guy. I want to do another one of him at some point. But this last weekend, I got a game in, and I was playing my Skaven. My Skaven aren't an army that I take to tournaments. They're just an army for me because they're old and I've had them for years and years, and they're painted at lots of different times and all over the place in quality and stuff like that. But as I was playing them, I was like, I played the army and I thought to myself, you know what, man, I really love this army. Like it rekindled my love of the rats, and so immediately I was like, I got to get some more stuff. So I dug through everything I had. I found another Warp Lightning Cannon, so I'm painting that up. I found another Doom Wheel, so I'm painting that up. The worst subassembly model of all time. Just like all... Let's see. To paint the Doom Wheel, he's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parts of subassembly. And I could have gone farther, but that was I had to call it at some point. It's ridiculous. And then I'm also painting another super old Doom Wheel that I have. This is the old metal Doom Wheel. This is what they used to look like. I know you two can't see it, but the audience can. And, he's just going to be a little quick, crappy paint job. And I'm going to rebase the whole army. I never rebased the army off of squares, because that's what they were on originally. And some of the newer stuff that I've painted for them, I went ahead and put it on rounds, because, duh, if I was going to paint something new, I was going to put it on the right base. So I'm going to rebase the whole army probably this weekend. And
Nice.
That'll be, I think at my last count, I crossed the 10,000 point threshold. So it'll be rebasing like 10,000. Well, all of it, because a little bit of it's on round basis. But let's call it 9K worth of that. What's funny about Skaven is how much I still don't have enough of what I want, even with 10,000 plus points. Okay?
Wow.
Because the army is outrageously huge.
It is.
Right? Like, the raw number of war scrolls is madness. So, like, clan rat wise, I'm okay. I've got 150 clan rats. Okay, great. So I'm set there. Like it would be very hard to imagine a situation where I couldn't put the number of clan rats on the table I would want. I've got my 40 storm vermin, generally good there. I did take them out this last weekend, and God, are they fun at that. Like I've always liked them, but they were just overpointed. Their new point value is perfect. Wonderful, good time. I was playing a Sylvaneth player who let me get right up to within 3 inches with Thankful of all of his dryads, and I had like 3 of the Warpfire throwers on Thankful, and then then there were no more dryads. They just all were like whoop.
That's
those
a bold
are all
move.
gone. And then in charged the 40 untouched storm vermin into all of his Kurnoth, who then got ramped up like all the way with all the bonus attacks. It was a great time. Anyways, what I don't like, but there's so much stuff I don't have. Like I don't have enough rattling guns and warpfire throwers. Right. I only have like 4 warpfire throwers. I only have 2 rattling guns. That's not enough of that stuff. You need more of it. This will make 3 doom wheels. That's not enough doom wheels. You need more than that. Yeah. That's a ridiculously low number of doom wheels. You can run 4 in the army. I need at least 4. So I'm just trying to add a bunch of stuff to it. So I was going through, I found an old bag that I had of like old metal, bag of old metal Skaven. And I found some extra gutter runners in there. I found another engineer in there, more rattling guns, and more Jezzail. So I'm going to paint all those up too.
Nice.
So there you go. And then I'm going to convert my 4th doom wheel to be an AOA hero, like a 400 point AOA hero.
That's awesome.
Who's riding like a mock doom wheel, because I've always wanted a hero and a doom wheel. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So cool. And I'll do like a little video out of it for rebasing. It'll be productive. Like I'll make a video on rebasing, how to going from squares to rounds. That's a video that I should have done a long time ago and stuff like that. I might do I'm trying to decide exactly what bases I want to do. If people have ideas or what they'd want to see me do, you can feel free to say it in the chat right now or put it in the comments of this video if you're watching later. I'm kind of thinking about like dungeon cave type of stuff. That might be kind of fun, like cave pattern stuff, but I don't know. We'll see.
I'm just still trying to come to terms with the fact that you're going to rebase your Skaven.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to happen.
Something you said you would never do.
Well, I'm a liar. I'll tell you what the breaking point moment was, Tom. Here's what it is. You ready for this? Here you go. All my Skaven are on squares and all my Skaven are magnetized. And I ran an infantry heavy army, something I don't normally do. So I had 80 clan rats and 40 storm vermin on the table as the core of my army, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I had 120 like little dudes on little bases. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And every time I would move them, what would happen? I'd move them and then
snap. Yep.
They'd snap together, right? I'd get these little piles of magnetized guys as they would all just go whoop, and snap together. And I was like, all right, I am done with this.
That's awesome.
With this. Because I'm never going to transport them out of this house. Like, they're never going to go to a tournament with me, so I don't need to have them magnetized.
Right.
Yep.
So like, nope, rebasing. That was it. I was like, I got to get rid of these magnets. And if I'm going to go to all that trouble, I might as well just rebase them. That was the decision point. It was so frustrating. Because every 5 seconds, it would be snap. And then I'm going to strangle you little morons.
Oh, man. Yeah, Paul nailed it. Goblin green bases. Do it. Make it so.
It will never happen. Ever. Never. Ever. Ever. Ever.
That's amazing.
Bases can be any color you want, as long as the base rim can be any color you want, as long as that color is black. That is the correct color. I follow the Henry Ford model of base rim color. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I'm working on. So a lot of hobby stuff. I'm excited to get these on the table. Yeah, this will put me up to like 3 lightning cannons and 3 doom wheels. I want to take out a couple of the warp cog convocations, and this will get me at a level where I can do more of this.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, I'm excited. I think doom wheels I've got some warp stone in the engine, as it were. Okay. Anyway. That's enough of Vince talks about Skaven in the Nurgle show. Although we'll come back to Nurgle a little later, or we'll come back to Skaven later in discussing Nurgle. Speaking of which, let's go. Let's talk Nurgle. All right, guys, here's my question. I'm going to start off with this. This is what I was saying right before we went live.
Okay.
How is this army not going to be one of the top whatever, pick the word you like, let's say more competitive armies post open up from lockdown in tournaments if we were running normally in a world where we can all play each other, given its vast breadth of capabilities. When I said books, there are what, 5, 6, maybe 6 different books if you count it that have Nurgle stuff in them. So the Nurgle book itself,
Yep.
Slaves to Darkness, Beasts of Chaos,
Yep.
Skaven, Wrath of the Everchosen, and then Tamerkin, if you want to count it as like 5.5 or whatever, that's kind of its own little thing, but it's out there. Okay, whatever. That's a lot of stuff, and just when you look across here, the sheer number of like combos and things that a lot of this stuff just works together. By the way, this entire force has like 10 times the number of scrolls that are in the Gits book, and yet half the amount of ghettoization, and like everything actually works together pretty amazingly. As well as what I think are just some absolute top-notch, really, really amazing units right now in certain roles. Like you need things to do certain roles. Looking across the breadth of what you have available, you can usually fill that role with like a best-in-class thing. Like you mentioned, bodies that you want to get across the table fast, Doug.
Yep.
Like there's so many good options you've got there, right? You
Spoil
want to
for
go,
'em.
yeah, high number of attacks. Like, okay, you've got those options. You've got just like hard-hitting hammers. Yep, you can fill that role, right? Doing a bunch of mortal wound damage. Yep, we can do that too, right? Being pretty tough and holding a spot. Yep, we can do that. How about negatives to counter the shooting meta? Yep, we can do that all day, right? Like, there's so many strengths this army has. It just doesn't, I think, is the only thing that has held it back is that it doesn't have, like, some outrageously broken cheaty mechanic. Is that it? That it mostly plays a fair game?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I tell people.
Like it does.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things I was explaining to somebody else on another show, but I was just, there's nothing like dead sexy about it. Like, there's no combo that's like, oh, this is amazing, or this sub faction is the best. But it's the fact that you have a toolbox that is bigger than any other faction. I mean, arguably, it's at least up there, if not past Skaven and Gloomspite and Cities. And when you start dipping around, yeah.
It was just interesting because I put together some sample lists, and I was like, I love everything about these lists. Like, I am digging what I am seeing here as far as capability goes. Yes. The actual models, as we all know, I hate Nurgle to the depth of my soul for its aesthetic. Yeah. It is the opposite of what I like. But that being said, capability-wise, just looking at words on paper, I'm like, hey, these words, I like these words. These are good words. They are matched up with numbers I also like.
Yep.
All right. So let's talk about, let's just start kind of general overview of some picks of some units.
Okay.
Take it across the sweep. Things we think have, capability, possibility, quality, what we need to talk about. If you're looking for a Nurgle force for fun or profit or pleasure, right? What are the things that you should be looking at? What are some of the units that grab you? Doug, take us off first. You can start us off. I know you've got a couple favorites.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll start simple and just say Blight Kings. Yeah. And the reason I say Blight Kings is they are dirt cheap for as many wounds as you get, because they're each 4 and then the leader's 5, I believe.
Yeah. 21 wounds for 140 points right now if you take them in 5s.
And so there are also, the reason I like suggesting them for new folks is, one, they're in a Star Collecting box. If you have 3 units of them plus any of the foot heroes that are no named, you have a battalion. It's like Lord of Blights, Lord of Plagues. It makes it really great to get into the game that way, and it only makes them way better. And then in addition to that, like, their ability to swing above their weight class for 140 points is there. It's not reliable per se, but it's there. And so that's definitely, like, if someone was like, what's the first unit I should look at? I'm like, Blight Kings, because you can find anything you want to fill in the weaknesses around them, and they are always good.
Yeah, good solid center, unbelievably cheap for the wound count, relatively good output, like, depending on, obviously it can depend whether or not they're in the battalion where they get rend, but either way, still, against low armor targets, they can be highly destructive. And shockingly mobile with their +1 to run and charge and the ability to slingshot them off a tree. Or sorry, their +1 to run and +1 to charge, and the ability to run and charge if you slingshot them off a tree. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'm down for that. I mean, that points drop on them was crazy. And I've seen a lot of people lean hard into the skew. I don't know that that's the right answer. Like, yes, that's a lot of fat on the board, but I don't know that that's the right answer. Though I think they are a strong.
The skew being just all Blight Kings.
Yeah, just like 40 Blight Kings or 45 or 50 or some really insane number.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't feel right to me, because then you're very like, you're a very unipurpose tool at that point, right? Like, you can do this one thing.
I'm a big fan of let's go with I'm a big fan of the goo I'm talking about.
Yeah, the unending gift or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. Because what it allows you to do realistically is set him on a point and just not move him.
Yep.
Sure.
And he takes a lot of effort in order to actually like shift then off of, wherever.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So, yeah.
All right. I dig that. All right. We might as well start this conversation now.
Sure.
Okay. Like,
yep.
You two both had perfectly fine, reasonable picks out of the Nurgle book. Much appreciated. Now I've got to bring in the spoiler. I got to bring in the thunder from down under, and that is Marauders. Nurgle marked Marauders. Look, I don't like it either. Okay. I don't like it either, but I'm sorry, man. 40 Nurgle marked Marauders are 40 points more than sort of like basically 10 Blight Kings. Yeah?
Right.
So you have the same-ish number of wounds, 41 to 40, right?
Yep.
Okay. You're paying 40 points more for the Marauders. What are you getting out of them? You're getting an outrageously more amount out of them, okay?
Yep.
Like, you have a unit of 40 that is not just fast, but blindingly fast.
Yeah.
Okay? They can absorb the bell buff from the Guo you mentioned.
Yep.
Okay? But they can slingshot off trees. They also have +1 to run and charge, and as well known, they have their ridiculous charge trick where they can set their lowest die to a 6. Okay?
Yep.
And their base 6, faster move base, right? They have built-in rend, as long as they have the correct number of models.
Right.
Okay? They make way more attacks than 10 Blight Kings. Like, 10 Blight Kings is 30 attacks, right?
Yep.
I mean, again, I'm just going to assume you have them all in. Whereas, which is not likely, but
no, but also those can explode on 6s, so it's kind of strange. But I get what you're saying. Yeah.
30 attacks, 5 of them mathematically 5 of them explode, and add another 15. So let's just call it 45, so we're fair, or 48, I guess would be what it actually is with the 3.5. So 48-ish somehow attacks is how it's working out. Whatever, something like that. Math is hard, but the Marauders are coming in with 80 attacks. Okay. On 3s and 4s instead of 3s and 3s, but built-in rend. And by the way, the Marauders can also absorb, in addition to everything I just mentioned, they can also absorb like the reroll hits and wounds off of the Sorcerer Lord. They can get the wound bonus and the +1 to save from the Nurgle marked War Shrine, from the Chaos War Shrine, because Nurgle's the one that gives +1 to save. Suddenly those Marauders are running around on the same 4-up save easily as the Blight Kings, right? And if they're near the shrine, also having a 6-up to back it up, because the aura would affect them as well, right? And so just making outrageously more attacks, re-rolling everything, right? With just like one buff piece following them around. And it's like they are so, not only are they so good base, they're so eminently buffable by everything, because everything from STD and everything from Nurgle feeds them. Like, we haven't even talked about putting a Glottkin in the list and then turning them into 80 wounds of nonsense when you send them in. Right. So, like, look, I didn't want it to be the case, but as I was building lists, I was like, yep, move to cart. Like, just like 40 Marauders, 40 Marauders. Okay, now let's talk about the rest of the list. Like, they are crazy hammers in this army that are just so stupid fast. Because if you put in, you can put in the War Queen as well, by the by, for another +3 to charge. So, like, 6 base, plus a 7 run, plus 3 for the bell, plus 3 for the War Queen, right?
Yep.
Plus their
And
charge, which is
and
almost,
they run across the table.
and their run, and their charge, which is basically always a minimum 9, 99% chance roughly of being a 9.
Yep.
Right.
It's
that
just
is
insane.
outrageous threat range on those, and they hit like a Mack truck when they show up. Okay.
They do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So at any rate, like it's
I think one strength of this army, and this is related to this, is that like most of those buffs that you just trotted through don't require spells.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so like manipulating the wheel does. But other than that, but that can be done from anywhere on the table.
For sure.
And so I think that in moving into this new meta, I think their strongest, like characteristic is that their buffs don't require spells.
Yeah. A lot of them are just kind of aura buffs. Like there are a few good spells. Don't get me wrong. We all love
spells
that they have, but you don't need those to work.
For sure.
Right? You can get a lot of what you want without that being in the case. Just like a big bunch of plague bearers has a really good just built-in self buff, and it doesn't need to be anything except a big group of plague bearers. It's not to say there's not other synergies, but like just having built-in neg 2 to hit from shooting because you've got a big bunch of them is really strong against a lot of armies. They're going to be on the table right now. So
I just can't get behind the models for the Marauders. I can't do it.
That's fine. I mean, like I converted for mine. Like I converted a bunch of Reavers. I carved off all the cord and save mills. I put them on the right bases, and that's how I went about it. I used a bunch of Marauder bits, shields, and stuff like that, and it works. But it takes work. It's not something that's just super easy or natural.
For sure.
Marauders are straight up ugly, and I hate them from the depth of my soul. I really do. Like, this is not because I have no care to ever actually run this army. Like, we could be doing a Slaanesh show, and I could be talking about the same crap. I'd be like, Marauders are the way to save Slaanesh. It's the way to make the army not bad anymore. And that might be true, and I'd be like, don't care. Never using those.
Exactly, yes.
Get those out of here. But
well,
look, they're good.
Go ahead.
No, that's all. I was going to say, they're good. Please, Doug.
No, I was just going to say, there is a point of talking about when things are competitive that I had someone in a live show be like, well, how come this isn't just winning everything? It's like, because it's not fun and it's unwieldy to move all these dudes every turn and so you clock out. So it's like you butt up against the realities of trying to be a human being playing this game.
And just moving 120
exactly
on 25 mil bases. Yeah. 100, absolutely the case. But still worth the discussion if you are the type of person.
If you have one solid unit of them for that minimal of a point investment and all the buffs apply to literally everything else in the army,
right?
Why not throw 40 at you? I don't care.
Absolutely the case. All right, Doug, back to you. What's some other hot pick units? Let's keep going. There's so many we could choose here, but
I know. I'll try to squeeze one from a different book, but honestly, Plague Monks are amazing. Plague Monks are so good. Basically, I mean, they share the same kind of general idea as the Marauders in terms of they're a horde unit. They can be buffed. But I like Plague Monks, especially with their new War Scroll, where it's a little more simplified, and they have some really cool internal things, like just the unit, as far as like attacking when you kill them and all that kinds of stuff. So I like that quite a bit. So if you're looking for an alternative because you really, really hate Marauder models, I would say Plague Monks.
I completely agree. They can get a lot of the same things we just talked about, depending on how much of that Nurgle stuff from Skaven you steal, right? Because you've got the option of not just the monks, but also the Furnace, the Priest, and the big Vermin Lord, all of whom are Nurgle marked, and all of whom bring basically the same types of buffs we just described, right? The kind of reroll hits, this bonus attacks, blah, blah, blah.
And that's a thing, I just want to put a pin in it because it matters for the rest of the discussion, is like a lot of the buffs, they're not unit specific. It's keyword Nurgle is the vast overwhelming majority. So even if you take a unit that's cheap to be sacrificed, they're going to put in work, and you can just shift those buffs to something else, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And your death frenzy point is so well stated. Like, the ability to fight on death is such an actual powerful tool in the current meta, right? Because the second some fight first, kumquat,
Yeah.
Moving on Terrorgeist.
Yes.
I always have to. I don't know why I use our joke word for it when I always re-explain it afterward. But anyways, the second one of those slams into you and picks up the unit of 40, which it will do.
Yep.
Right. Like easily. That's not even a stretch for that thing to pick up that unit. It'll have spillover wounds. It might not need to attack a second time. But the fact that you then get to basically fight with probably most of them back at that thing means you will put real damage on it. So yes, 100%. I'm with that. I'm with that pick. There is an advantage there. And again, still dirt cheap. Those guys are just outrageously still efficiently costed. Tom, what do you got? What's your next hot pick?
You know, it used to be. It would have been a harbinger of decay, but it's just not anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks to the no stacking. Yeah. Old dumb model always hated him and hated the way he made the army play.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he forced the army into this weird either daisy chaining or like a tight bubble around him to maximize. I think the army plays better in like detached power pairs and power triples operating around the board.
Yep.
So
agreed.
Yeah, I think that's he's out. I agree, but I don't think it's as bad as people say. I don't think you need him. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I got more picks.
Well, let me say this. I like Lord of Afflictions.
Okay, right on. Let's talk about the Lord of Afflictions.
Because let me start it this way. Because we have Blight Kings at like so effective now, I think the Lord of Afflictions really gains a lot of value.
10,000%. He's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and so I think that it's so he can be a carrier for Rustfang. Like he can just do all the things that we kind of need him to do. So
no, I agree. I think the Lord of Afflictions, one of the things that you want in this army is a good solo operator. Somebody who can fly around, pin a unit on the corner. Like we've talked about many times on this show, the importance of pinning units. An MVP for me in most games I played with Slaanesh was the stupid mask. Okay? This dumb little dancy 5-wound hero, right?
Yep.
But she's such a good pinner because she would just like float around and do her little dance, right? And then she would just tag the edge of something, and then they'd have to slowly pile in to kill her, which would actually take quite a while. And she'd hold that whole unit up, or force them to retreat away, or whatever. But then they waste a turn, right? And I think he's that. I think he's absolutely that, right? Because he can be relatively fast for any of the things we've mentioned, plus his own ability. And he's not on like the biggest base in the world. He's still on a sort of biggish cavalry base, but he's one guy, right? And he's a great like little independent dude to walk around and go pin units or do work or hunt in the backfield. You know what I mean? Just go like you go around, you hit a little chaff unit, then you swing around to the backfield, and now you're back there messing stuff up for their little objective holders, right? Making them have to turn and deal with him.
For sure. Yeah, no, I use him in every game. I love him.
Yeah. Well, let's just roll on then. And my pick will be both of the drone types, okay?
Yes.
So your Puskoil Blight Lords, who I think are going to be my lesser pick, sadly.
What?
I know. And I'll let you defend them. And then the Plague Drones, which are the ones with the regular Plague Bearers on top.
Yep.
I like both of these dudes for a couple things that they bring to the table. One, flight, right?
Yes.
Like just a useful ability in its own right. Two, the Blight Lords are more of like a mobile anvil. They can be real fast and kind of be a mobile anvil. The drones can be more of a mobile hammer. And that, that's kind of how they break out. They do need, like, the drones need certain synergies and stuff to really hit as hard as you would want them to. But they can do, like, they're a moderate-ish hammer. Like, they're acceptable. They're a good secondary threat that's fast and can flank on top of your, like, walking Blight Kings or your or your big block of Marauders or the things we've already just talked about, right?
Yep, for sure.
Because you, like, look, it's fun to talk about the stuff in the void as though we're all just playing on like flat tables with no terrain and no enemy forces and no
Yeah, yeah.
endless spells and other nonsense that gets in the way. But like being on foot is innately worse than being in the air, right? And
Right.
there is a high value in this game to being able to fly. Somebody
Mhm.
can't just like plop down a big wall in between two terrain pieces and go, I guess your marauders can't come through here anymore. So sorry, the
Mhm.
flies just go over the top. So yeah, what
Yeah.
you use a lot of Pusk Oil Blight Lords, right, Doug?
Yeah, so when I am army building, the first thing I do is I spend 1,050 points for Lord of Afflictions, 3 units of Puskull Blight Lords, and the Affliction Cyst, which
Yep.
he basically does all the things that you mentioned before. But the thing about the battalion is he lets them all get super movement, and so I'm always in my opponent's nose turn one.
Yep.
And they don't really require any buffs because there's not a lot of synergy. I mean, there's much more so for the plague drones, but like for the Puskull Blight Lords, like they can just sit there and be fat anywhere, so they might
Yeah.
as well do it in your face.
Right.
So yeah, I hurl them forward, and then I can use the Lord of Afflictions, who's now mid board across the mid board line to go pin down a unit if they need to.
Yep. Right on. Yeah, I love them as the sort of alpha block type of tool, right? To pin people in with
Yep.
a big portion of their army and sort of make them react to it. Which is interesting because there are some of these scenarios. Like, have you had a chance to play Blade's Edge yet? The one where you remove, where you end up removing objectives. It's one of the new scenarios.
So I think they gave it a new name. Is that the one where like they're all in a perfect line, and then if you go second, you get to pull away one?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It had a different name in the Storm Vault scenario thing. It was actually in there first.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Yeah, it was my favorite scenario. Yes, I have played that one, not specifically with my Nurgle. I think I stole my Stormcast at that point.
No, what's interesting about it is I've played it a couple times now, and it's fascinating how good an alpha block scenario works in that thing. Because if you jump on them and sort of hold them back, and you're getting like 4 or 5 of the points in like round 1 and 2, right? By round 3, when there's now only 4 points that exist, it just becomes actually really, really hard for them to ever climb back up, right? Because as they push you off, now they take 2 back, 3 back. Okay, they get 3 points. You still get 1, right? It just becomes almost impossible for them to catch your total. You get what I'm saying? Like you can race way up in turns 1 and 2 and just make it so it's like, okay, I'm untouchable now because these are getting pulled.
And that's regardless of the mission, that's the core strategy of my army is just I'm going to race up to the top turn 1, and then the rest of the game is me drinking a beer and you trying to kill everything fast enough to get unclogged. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, right on. I dig it. All right, Tom, do we want to talk about Plague Bearers? We kind of mentioned it before. Would you like to touch Plague Bearers? You've used some Plague Bearers. I mean, you probably don't want to actually touch them because they do seem sticky and gross.
They are
like they would be sticky. You know it.
They would totally be sticky. Yeah. I mean, they can't really kill anything. They're on 32 mil bases.
True.
And so that's all pretty useless. But
they got cheaper.
But they got cheaper, and they do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No.
So yeah, I am a fan of them. Let me say it that way.
Have you ever done the list where it's like 2 big blocks of 30 of them and some Lord of Blights to like make them untouchable? Have you seen that?
I have seen that. I don't think it's real useful.
Yeah, I've played it against a few times now.
Have you found it effective?
I did. It was actually one of my most fun games when I was playing my Beast of Chaos, where I had just a few tools to shoot. Like I had the Zangor on disc or whatever they are. But I it's one of those things. As much fun as I had, I immediately acknowledged, like, oh man, if I had like even one decent gun, this would all be shut down because I would snipe the blights out, and then I don't know. But it is an interesting thing, and there is a game there. If you're not ready for it, you're hosed.
Yeah. What I like about Plague Bearers is one. I know the points adjustment wasn't huge to them, but to me it was actually exactly the right amount, especially in the current meta. because they have two. You're right. They won't kill anything, right? They're just like a giant pillow you put on the board, but like a rotten pillow full of pus.
Mhm.
But they're a pus pillow. But that being said, they have two things just natively on their scroll that I actually really love. One, obviously, built-in 5-up mortal wound save, right?
Yes.
A lot of the game right now is the ability to sort of kind of around mortal wounds, right? You've got like Croak and Teclis and a lot of other people like that who wanna go a spreading little mortal wounds around, right? So having big blocks with built-in protection to that is actually really valuable.
Yeah.
Two, the fact that when you have them over 20, they're neg 2, we've mentioned this before, they're neg 2 to be hit in shooting and neg 1 to be hit in melee.
Yep.
I find like unbelievably valuable.
Yes.
Like that is crazy hard for a lot of armies to pull up with their shooting, right?
Yep.
Because you will push a lot of armies to needing 5s to hit you, 6s to hit you with their good stuff. And things like salamanders or whatever, stuff like that gets a lot less scary when when you have a save against their mortal wounds and you're giving them neg 2 to hit, right? Like you just vastly reduce their damage. Same with like flamers or pinks, or you pick whatever you like that's shooting at you. Like neg 2 to be hit and shooting is super good. Duh.
Yep.
Okay. Really crack a new tactical ground here on this one. Neg 2 to hit, get it if you can.
Well, the thing that I like about them, and honestly, I prefer them in the summoned 5-man units than I do the 10, like actually buying them.
Yeah, sure.
And the reason I say that is because like they're in this annoying space where I find my opponents either overcommit to kill them or they undercommit and there's a dude left on an objective. And when it's a full unit, people are like, oh yeah, well, I'll throw my evocators at them and they'll be gone. Yeah, no question. They totally will be. They're not going to do a thing. But if it's 5 and you're like, well, I have this, 2 or 3, I don't know. I was trying to think of the Skaven sniper dudes, but any kind of ranged unit that's meant to remove something from an objective,
right?
They can be just a pain in the butt enough to be deceptive to make hard decisions. So,
yeah, I like it. All right, should we talk about? We mentioned him at the top of the show. Should we talk about old Glott, old big Glottsy?
Yes,
That'll be good someday.
Speaking of people who got cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, technically, yes.
That is.
What do you mean technically? Yes, it is strictly true. Yes,
that's exactly. Yes, he did in fact get cheaper. It's not a thing that's like open for subjective interpretation. Like, yes, he got cheaper. Okay, all right. So he went down. Obviously, to Glotty went down into ally territory.
Yes, that's the key.
Yeah, he is now 380. Okay. And the things we need to talk about with him are like combat wise or whatever he actually does is like it's okay. Right? It's fine. It's fine. He's okay. I'm not sure he's punching 380 points worth of melee power, but that's all right. Okay.
Right.
He has 18 wounds on a 4-up save, and he heals a little bit each round. Fine.
Right.
But why you're taking this guy, right, is for his command ability, which is very similar to other types of things like this. Except that his is not like the Guos is restricted to so it's +1 attack. The Guos is restricted to Nurgle demons. His is just Nurgle units, so it works on everything we've talked about so far. Right? Like works on Marauders, works on Plague Monks, works on the Plague Drones and
Bestigors and Knights.
Yep. Any of it, all of it. So that's good. Generally, +1 attack command abilities are, good. Also, this is the hot take episode here. Getting more attacks, it's good.
But this just emphasizes a point that you asked me and Tom earlier of just like, how come people don't see this as like the next top? It's like, because none of it's like crazy. Getting more attacks is good in every army, but here it's backed up by all these things that are coming together. Anyway, sorry, go on.
No, I agree completely. And then obviously he has his spell, right? His Fleshy Abundance
Mhm.
spell, which we talked about a little bit. Cast on a 7, friendly unit within 14 that is visible to them. Add 1 to the wounds characteristic of all models in that unit until your next hero phase. And at the start of your next hero phase, that unit's wound characteristic is reduced to its original value. Which is super, super duper good on like 1 wound things like plague bearers or marauders or things like that. When you suddenly rocket those things up to 60 or 80 wounds, it's just the amount they don't die, right?
Right.
Is just insane. I mean, the fact that you could be dropping that onto a pack of marauders that is buffed up as I had previously described is a nightmare. Right?
Oh yeah.
As that thing then sits there and fights for the whole next turn at never going below 20 models, basically, because it's 60 wounds worth of dudes now, right?
I mean, it's okay. Like, let's not.
It's still a hard spell to get off on a 7 for him who doesn't have like casting bonus stuff.
Yes.
Totally fair.
Like, it's okay, is what I would say. I don't know. Like, I used to love the Glottkin. I lovingly painted up mine, and I have just never been satisfied. Like, I was lured in by the +1 attacks, right? And I was like, oh, this is it, you know. And it just doesn't get the job done.
Yeah, I get it. He's still probably a little expensive for what he actually can accomplish, especially in the world where it's hard to get his spell off. I mean, that's just real talk.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to. I'll agree with Tom on that one. Like my thing is he stays on the shelf not because he's bad. He's not bad. It's just he doesn't do what I want him to do and what my army does, and kind of like how I like to play. However, with him now being an ally territory, like that's awesome. It's so awesome because then you can take a Skaven army with all pestilence and there's a lot of directions you can go where, you know, sure, it's not about the Glottkin, but I feel like he has more utility now in other places.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, again, I don't want to overplay him, but I think he's in the this should be considered area now, right? Whereas when he was above 400, I wasn't a buyer.
For sure.
I'm still not sure I'm recommending a buy, but I'm interested phase with him.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Anybody else we want to talk about that we haven't covered yet? I mean, there's a lot more, obviously a ton more units. Is there anything else that we have? Okay. What else you got?
Oh no, I was saying yes, there's a ton more units. No, I don't think, because honestly, the problem is there's so many ways to play that the faction that like what I see as amazing is totally different. Like I think Puscoil Blightlords are the bee's knees, but you'll find a lot of people online who are like, they don't do anything. It's like, that's okay.
Yeah.
They just need to stay alive and not do anything.
Right.
Right.
We'll talk about units that we wish were good at the end. Okay.
For sure. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because there are also a lot of like, scrolls in this army. Sorry, I'm leading off camera to pick up my Wrath of the Everchosen because I don't have the 4 sub-factions memorized. All right, so let's talk about the 4 sub-factions. That's what I want to go into next.
For sure.
Nurgle previously, and we kind of gave these short shrift when we did Wrath of the Everchosen, but I think that was unfair, and I'd like to spend more time on them now. Nurgle famously is one of those books that does not have sub-factions.
Yep.
Fine. Okay, like, first of all, not everybody needs sub-factions. If we're going to start handing out sub-factions to everybody, then we need to have a real come-to-Jesus moment about how we're going to balance these things out. Okay?
Right.
Like, everybody's like, at the top of the show, people were like, get sub-factions. And I hear this all the time. Gets. Got to get them gets sub-factions. And I'm like, whoa. Let's slow our roll here, okay? Like, not...
I still think Gets need sub-factions.
I think we could... You know what I'd just rather? How about we just give Gets a real allegiance ability?
I would accept that, too.
10,000%.
I just... My point is, I don't want to see every book and every army designed exactly the same.
Sure.
Okay? I value variance in play experience. And many of the armies I play are the ones that, like, don't have sub-factions, and I'm happy with that. So, anywho. Neither here nor there.
For sure.
All right. So we got 4 in here. The Munificent Wanderers, the
Mhm.
Droning Guard, the Blessed Sons, and the Drowned Men. And so
Yes.
the first two are more or less focused on demons. The
Mhm.
second two are more or less focused on Rotbringers.
Yes.
Okay. So Doug, what do you like out of here? Where would you like to begin on these? I'm gonna have you start us off. What's been your hot pick?
So I mean, going along with what I said earlier, my hot pick's going to be the Drowned Men, which is partially the theme of my army. I started painting it before this book came out, so it kind of just like fit right in. But anyway, so you want me to go through like the command
Yeah,
abilities
man.
and all that
Yeah.
kind of okay.
Walk us through it.
So yeah, the Drowned Men is specifically a mortal Nurgle thing that focuses on Puscoil Blightlords. And so they have a thing called ability, Nurgle's Embrace. Roll a dice each time a Drowned Men Rotbringer model is slain in combat phase. On a 2-up, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Just who cares? You could have just cut that text out and nobody cares because I mean, my entire, your Puscoil Blightlords, all the ones that I have, half an army is 8 dudes. So,
Sure. Not a
I'm
huge
not
amount of
worried
mortal
about
wound
it.
potential
Like-
there, yeah.
For the command trait is really where it shines for me, and that is you can re-roll charge rolls for friendly Drowned Men Puscoil Blightlords units wholly within 14 of the general. So that's when I do my trick of I launch the Lord of Afflictions up forward, everyone goes with him, and then he can give them re-roll charges to ensure that everybody gets into combat. Or at least can position themselves super, super well. Command ability. Now, this is going to be a reoccurring theme for the command abilities here, where you're just like, hope you're ready for the test after this dissertation because they're just wordy. Basically, at the start of the combat phase, you pick a friendly Blight Lord unit wholly within 12 of Rotbringer hero until your next hero phase. If the unmodified wound roll for an attack made by the blighted weapon specifically is 6, improve the rend characteristic by 1. And they could have just given them rend. Like it could be a command ability where it's like just get rend, and it still would not break anything. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then artifact to power is the Rot Kraken Hide, which is add 1 to the bearer's wound characteristic.
Right on. Now, is it specifically did you pick this one because it's the Puscoil Blightlord focused one over like say the Blessed Sons? Just did you like the better focus on it?
Yeah, so basically I ran through a few turn ones, kind of comparing the two of them. So just to kind of let you know, sneak peek ahead. So the Blessed Sons let you use the at the double command ability without spending command point once per turn.
Yep.
And so I was kind of comparing like, okay, what's more effective? Getting that free reroll to charge to ensure these units get in so I don't have to spend a command point there, or the free command point from at the double in the beginning. I just, in the times that I played, the Lord of Afflictions bubble of reroll charge rolls, because it affects him himself, it does much better at that thing I was describing earlier of throwing the Blight Lords up in your face, and then him getting his rerolls can go and pin down a unit.
Sure.
So I just found it to be better. I mean, like thematically it works too, but in practice it just goes smoother for me with how I play. Yeah, that'd be mine.
No, fair answer. Fair answer. Yeah, I mean because so let's do the Blessed Sons. Same exact ability, right? The 2-up. This one's a little more broad. It works with sort of Blight Kings because it's just Blessed Sons Rotbringer units.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned, the command trait is you can use the at the double. Basically, your run is automatically a 6 once around. And their artifact is you can reroll all save rolls for attacks that target the bearer, which I don't hate.
No, and I don't mind the +1. That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, their command ability is like, I'm not even going to bother.
I told you.
No, I'm just not even going to bother. It's like, it's so insane what they're like. Whoever came up with this text, they were doing some galaxy brain thinking when they were writing this text. Let me tell you what.
So the idea is cool. It's just, hey, did you do more wounds than their bravery? Yes. Then they take 3 extra wounds. It's just to clear out horde armies. But the verbiage needed to articulate that in a rules way is like,
right.
No.
I almost feel like what we need is so you've seen new 40K,
yes,
the new 40K rulebook, right? Where they'll have like the big block of of like detailed rules text,
Mhm.
whatever. But then underneath it, they like bullet point out what they just said in really simple, plain language, right?
Yep. Put it in English.
Yeah, they just put it into English, right? Like, because there's the difference between sort of the legalese needed to handle the corner cases and just what's going to handle 99% of the cases.
Yes.
And they just actually admitted that in the 40K rulebook. Because, for example, if under this command ability they said what you just said,
Yes.
right? If it just said, if you deal more wounds than their bravery, then you deal 3 additional mortal wounds.
Which
See
is
above.
awesome.
Right. See above for details on how this works.
Exactly.
Right? Then you like reading it would be so much easier once you had the context of what you were aiming at. Because when you start reading it, you're like, what journey are you taking me on here, words? This is
exactly.
I don't know where we're going.
Exactly.
You're a passenger in an out of control car as you read that paragraph. But yeah, okay. Tom, what out of any of the 4 of these you particularly like?
No.
No.
I mean, like there's like it's not
yeah.
like everything else. It's
Yes.
like yeah, it's okay. There's some
Mhm.
benefits. There's some drawbacks, and yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I will say this. I think my actual favorite out of this whole set
Okay.
is the Droning Guard. Okay?
Yeah, that was my next pick for sure.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why I like the Droning Guard. I like the Droning Guard even if only like half my army is actually demons, because
Sure.
I just like
Sure.
what it does.
Yeah.
Which is, so both the Munificent Wonders and the Droning Guard have the same base ability, which is when an enemy unit is within 3 inches of any friendly Droning Guard demon units, worsen the rend characteristic of that unit's melee weapons by 1 to a minimum of, nothing, which is okay, cool. Good stuff. I like anything that reduces rend. I think that's really good. Not everybody has rend in the game, obvi, but still, sapping people's rend is generally a good thing.
Yep.
Their command ability is really good, even without any kind of weird stacking, which is you can pick a Droning Guard Plague Drone unit. So this is all about the Plague Drones, specifically, obviously, the dudes I mentioned earlier of the Plague Bearers on the flies. And their Disgusting Resilience goes up by 1, so now they're Disgustingly Resilient on a 4-up, which is very strong. And then their command trait I absolutely loved. Like, I love it. Which is, after armies have been set up, but before the first battle round begins, all the friendly Droning Guard Plague Drones units get to move 4 inches. Super cool. I love pre-game move stuff, and being able to move all of my flyy, buzzy demon dudes, even 4 inches, is really good for just creating space.
For sure.
There's a lot of objectives now that start like just outside of your control reach in some of these in some of the new battle plans. Right, where like the edge of their line and your setup are, don't just like are asymptotes of each other, right?
Right.
And so any kind of pre-game move where you can just go like, okay, I have this, like, and this is going to be mine unless you come do something about it, right? So okay, and then obviously the Cloak of Flies. Is their artifact is just subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with melee weapons that target the bearer. Okay, cool. Neat. Cool beans. Yeah, I mean, I think that one's pretty good. Again, I value Plague Drones. I think you have to build the army somewhat around that, but you don't have to go like all in on it. You could have 1,000 points, 1,200 points in it, whatever, and be good.
I think about if I had gone the path of like collecting demons instead of mortal stuff, this would be a huge win. Because I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, well, at this point, because of the way the keywords work, you could do that big brick of 30 Plague Bearers and a Blight Lord who now has a -1 to be hit, so it's a little more protection because it just has to be a hero. It doesn't have to be a demon hero. And then, that's one problem that you're posing to your opponent. Never mind all of the crap with the flies just being super aggressive and I like it quite a bit. It's one that like I didn't really take time to read it because I was doing mortal stuff.
Sure.
Until I started trying to find a way to make Hotriculus Slimix work, and I was like, oh, this is legit. So,
all right. So what I want to talk about next is So I think the point is these sub-factions are good if you're using units that are going to be aligned with them. And by the way, one of my points of sub-factions, I do think these are sub-factions done right. And this is one of the things we've talked about in previous shows. Sub-factions are good when they're like largely somewhat dictating unit choice, right? This is the one that's good with plague drones, and most of its abilities, but not all, are fairly plague drone focused or whatever, right? Seraphon did this well, where it's like, okay, you can, this is the one where that's good with your monster people, and this is the one that's good with your skinky doos, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, cool. So if we're going to add sub-factions to stuff, please make them like that, and not just a bunch of like, here's raw power for your entire army, no matter how you build it, go ahead. Because then inevitably one's just going to come out better.
Yep.
You want to get Gristle Gores, that's how you get Gristle Gores, okay?
Yeah.
So, all right. What do we see as this army has a lot of, like, as we've said, versatility and things it's good at. What do you both see as the challenges to this army? Like, what's keeping it from being very successful? That's what I'm trying to ask here. Okay. What are its natural predators on the table? What are the situations it's not going to do well with? That kind of stuff. Because we've talked about how it has a lot of capabilities, and I do believe it does, and I do believe it's primed for success. But what's holding it back? What's your situations that are going to be tough?
Tom, what do you think? I gotta think on this one just a hot second.
Sure. Well, let me pose some potential options to both of you.
I got one.
Okay.
So I was gonna say range stuff, because across all of the options that we have, there's not a lot of shooting. And shooting for doing the exact thing that we were talking about earlier, as far as like spot removal of heroes and stuff like that. I find to be really, really difficult.
That's fair, because I mean, outside of a few of the demon type units that we've mentioned that have those built-in negatives, a lot of this stuff can be very susceptible to just getting shooting pumped into it, right? Yeah, no, I'm with that, and you're right. Things like Lord of Blights or even your Lord of Afflictions or whatever, like those guys can be picked out with shooting, especially depending on the shooting, fairly straightforwardly. So I'm with that. I think that they have an interesting matchup, and I think it's very list dependent, right? Like, what list do you have? How fast is your stuff? How well is your opponent at picking out the weak spots with their shooting and hitting the right things? All that kind of stuff. What does a terrain look like, right? Like, all of that super duper matters. Okay. Tom, what about you? What are your thoughts? Anything that you can see as a sort of thing holding this back?
I think that it's going to struggle with, like in the new world, the new world order. I think that it's going to struggle with magic. Like a lot of, like magic is just not something that it can really buff, and so the magic for this army is going to become very unreliable.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that's just the reality. Like, that's the new world that we're in.
Yep.
It's true.
They have a lot of wounds, and they have some mortal wound protection, but you are still afraid of somebody like Croak, just celestial dominance and because you are chaos. You're suffering the 3 mortals, right? Just like boom, 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 all over the place. So it can still be. You might have ways to mute its effect, but it's still happening, and it's still going to be very dangerous.
Yep. One thing I would say, sorry, was there any more things on magic before I?
Okay. No, like it's going to struggle in those spaces
for sure. One thing for me is like as I have tried talking to people about Magakin, one thing I bump up against is there can be a learning curve for model placement. Like, for example, like, for a turn or two, all of your fat boys are running very, very fast. But if you don't put them in the right place, the second they're out of the tree range or out of range of some hero that lets them do stuff, or the wheel turns, they move very, very slow. And so you need to get where you need to go immediately. And that's just something you have to understand the missions. You have to understand your opponent about how they're going to deploy things, that kind of stuff. So it can be hard for newer folks, because if you for example, I played a game against Jacket Rerolling Ones. We were just having a friendly game, and I threw a big block of Blight Lords like I do, pinning them down in his deployment, but I threw them at the wrong people, and that was a problem because then he weaseled right out of them. And so, I don't know. It was a big deal, but like that kind of stuff costs you the game.
Gotcha. Did he blow his little Ocarnia of time and just, ride the winds etheric away or something on you or whatever?
No, he wasn't doing the shoot cast. He was doing his corn.
Okay.
And basically, I put a unit of 2 Blight Lords into his main damage dealers instead of the unit of 4, which I should have.
Gotcha.
And then Scarbrand just did 32 mortal wounds and deleted a 10-man unit of Glottkin. So.
He does that occasionally.
And it was one of those things where you're just like, I'm not even mad. I'm actually impressed. This is cool.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. Scarbrand's a fun guy. It's great when he gets incandescent. You just watch him go. Yeah. Which, by the way, worst choice they ever made was removing the names of rage levels from the reformatted Scarbrand War Scroll. Because, it used to be like angry, ferocious, blah, 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 whatever, down to incandescent, which was like my favorite description of somebody who's so mad they're just glowing.
Yeah, I would have accepted over 9,000 as well, and that's about it. Those are the only 2 options.
So, mistakes GW made with corn. That is one of them. There you go. Okay. No, fantastic. I have a one to propose, and I'm interested for both of your thoughts.
Okay.
It's not something that's super duper in the meta right now, okay? But I could see it being around. High armor. Like, when I say high armor, I don't mean like a bunch of dudes on 4-up saves, right? I mean like high armor being like people who across their army can achieve a lot of like 3-ups rerolling 1s or 2-ups or stuff like that, right? There aren't a huge amount of these armies out there, but do you think that still poses a problem? Because a lot of your hammers are like no rend or rend neg 1, maybe. You have some ability to kind of, splash around a little bit of mortal wounds, but you have to really lean into that build.
Yeah,
like
if you lean into it, you can do all the mortal wounds. But yeah, I see what you're saying. The average player doesn't do that.
I don't know that that's actually a predator you would run into.
Well,
I guess
it's
interesting to me.
My clarifying question for you is like, so an opponent's army who is, trying hard or dedicated to doing the 3-up rerolling 1s or even 2-up in like Archeon's case or something crazy like that, you can do that. Are they also still killy? Because then it comes down to like, if I get to that objective first, I'm just gonna sit there, and you can, because if you're not killy, it's just 2 fat dudes, doing sumo and ramming into each other.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Yeah, I mean you're right. I mean, outside of Archeon, who's another interesting choice, by the way. He is
he is
a Nurgle March guy. We didn't talk about him, but he is super interesting in this army. I mean, Archeon, you're absolutely right, can be on a 2-up rerolling 1s and pretty easily. And in various and sundry different ways. There's actually many different ways to achieve that for him. A shockingly high number of ways to achieve that for him. He's obviously still super killy, but he's also like 800 points, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
So, okay, fair is fair, I suppose, right? I don't know how many, like, now that there's no Petrifex Elite, I suppose, like, Mortis Praetorians would be probably what I'm describing, right? Because they can still achieve a high rerollable save. Like, OBR Mortis Praetorians, I think, are a fairly natural counter to you, or to Nurgle.
What about Sequitors? Can they energize their shields or something like that?
Yeah, but just to a 4-up rerollable.
Oh, okay. I thought it was better than that.
Well, they could go 3-up with the Lantern, but sure. They can get Lantern buffed. Right, sure. So, yes, I mean, like, Sekis can go 3-up rerollable, but Sekis have other... I guess, I mean, I'm not sure what to think of Stormcast right now in general. With all their points drops and stuff, like, I haven't reformulated my opinion of exactly what to think about them. Because they're something that could just, like, suddenly roar back to life. There's so many people with Stormcast armies, they could just show back up in a heartbeat and be everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? So yeah, I don't know, but sure, yeah, something like Sekis. Imagine you can build a good army with Sekis somewhere in there, right? Who are going 3-up shield tilt, rerolling, or yeah, like Morris Praetorians, you can go 3-up rerolling. The difference with Morris Praetorians is they are still fairly damaging. They don't have like the old PE level of the Petrifex Elite level of like -2 rend, but they can still get the job done.
Right.
So that feels like a somewhat natural counter. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I look at something like Tzeentch, the great enemy of Nurgle.
Sure.
Incorrect, by the way. I hate how they aligned with the Chaos Gods. They are completely mismatched. It should be exactly the opposite of what it is. Like, Nurgle should oppose Slaanesh, and Tzeentch should oppose Khorne. Those are the actual two philosophical showdowns. I've said this on the show before. They're never going to change it because now it just is what it is, and it's like X years of history, but it's stupid, and I don't like it. And I'll die on this hill. But anyway, like a lot of Tzeentch armies, I think get rolled over, just bowled over by Nurgle, because they want to sit there and castle, and like you will, like the low armor stuff of plowing through Pink's units now.
Oh yes,
or things like that. Absolutely, like yeah, I'll fight all your dudes on 6-ups. Like I'm gonna vaporize that unit, just like it is gonna cease existing. And once I touch all your flamers and your Lord of Change, like anything I get my hands on, I'm just gonna slap it around, right?
Yep.
And you'll be in their face so fast.
Yep.
Right. So to me, like I think actually in the great showdown of the turkey versus the grandfather's coming out ahead in this particular world.
I agree, but I think it would be a incredibly fun game.
Sure. It would be really... I imagine the battlefield would smell awful. Just awful. Between how stinky Nurgle probably normally is, and then all of it getting roasted by pink and blue warp flames or whatever. That is going to be an unfortunate aroma that wafts off of that battlefield. Let me tell you what. All right. Cool. Well, let's close out here. And I want to talk about things that we would want to see improved. It's not out of the question that at some point here we'll get a new Nurgle book, right? They were one of the early ones, pre 2.0. It could happen. So what are the things we would love to see improved? Okay, like what are the units that let us down, or the synergies that are too tightly construed, or options that we wish we had? You can construe this however you want. There's lots of different ways that books can change, obviously, right?
For sure.
So, Doug, any thoughts on what you'd love to see in the next turn of the wheel of Nurgle here?
For me personally, I would love either an artifact command ability, however you want to put it in there, but some thing that allows me to put the tree down after sides have been chosen.
Okay.
Because it's just one level of control over a resource that, frankly, you've already paid for, like monetarily in real life. But it's interesting because there's ways to obviously generate new trees. Horticulus Slimex can poop one out every turn on top of summoning them. Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff, but there's nowhere to just be like, hey, you know that cool toy you bought? Yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. Like, it's like, well, what are you talking about?
Okay.
That would be my pick, my number one.
All right. That's good. That's a good pick. Tom, what's your pick?
Summoning. Make it functional.
Okay.
What? Okay, sorry. Go on.
I hate like the conditional variable.
I would agree with that.
Just like stop it.
You need the fact that you need like a little abacus at the end of each turn. It's like, okay, I do have this territory, and I'm alone here, and D3 for this, and there's a tree, and then another tree, and you're just like with that sort of thing. Is that what you're hating?
Yes, or like change it so that like I don't know, like I hate the tension of like having to either summon trees or summon models. Yeah, like it feels like it's one of the only summoning mechanics where you're penalized for like. How do I want to say this? Like, you can't build to ramp in that army, okay, for summoning. Like where like in Tzeentch you can build by getting more spellcasters.
Mhm.
Sure.
Khorne you can build by like making more units that die easily.
Sure.
There's
Right.
not really
Go
any
harder into the
random-
paint on MSU. Yes.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. That's I first thought you were going to say like the points cost for the units was wrong. I was like, I don't know, man. I think it's pretty great, but like, no, you're right. The actual wordage and verbiage for how you accrue your resource is like, this is annoying.
like when you compare it, like look at the comparative value of that summoning and what you're getting for what point values.
Yeah.
Like
You know, like-
how many average points you're going to generate in Nurgle in a game. And it makes me like not even want to bring real demons to the game. Like it makes me want to just bring trees.
Sure.
Yep.
Because I just know that I'm never going to generate enough points to actually put real units down on the table.
Sure.
It's like it feels so lackluster compared to every other summoning in the game.
Sure. I mean, at most, you probably bring. I would imagine that a lot of times in most games, what is summoned is one of two things.
Okay.
Again, not being a Nurgle player, this is my read of it from watching people and playing against Nurgle in tournaments. These are the two things that get summoned against me: additional trees
Mhm.
Or 10.
and small packs of plague bearers to hold
Yep.
points.
That's it.
Yeah, and like it just if that's their vision, that's fine. But it's like as a like when I look at the table and I look at the other like options,
Mhm.
like I look at that and I'm like, okay, well, if one large part of my faction of my allegiance abilities, I have my wheel and I have summoning. If summoning is junk and I can't manipulate the wheel easily enough with spells because casting, we talked about this.
Right.
Then like why am I doing this over Slaves to Darkness?
Sure.
Like, why don't I just do Nurgle Slaves to Darkness? And in fact, I basically sold all of my Nurgle stuff. That
Thanks.
is not Slave. You're welcome. It's not Slaves to Darkness because of this. Because when I look at it, I go, why would I do demons? Why would I even do mixed with, like, I'm sad I can't use my Blight Kings now because they're really good and they're really well priced. But at the end of the day, it's just, they're subpar. Because of the allegiance abilities, and it's particularly the summoning mechanic. Now, if like summoned units counted towards your corruption,
Mhm.
you know, like maybe you just gain 1 point for every summoned unit in your corruption tally, right? And so then like the trees, which can generate like a D3 or whatever, like,
For sure.
you know, like you're getting less, but you're actually getting usable troops maybe. And then you can still ramp that way. Like, I don't know. I just like, as it is, the summoning mechanic is completely lackluster.
So question, do you feel like it's because they have like a foot on each side of the fence? Like here's the wheel as an overarching mechanic, and then here's the summoning as an overarching mechanic, and the two just don't, like, they're not, there's no way to commit to either of them in a very meaningful way. Is that what you mean?
Right. Like
Okay,
there's no, like none of, like, I don't want to say none of their mechanics, but like like you have to go very narrow right now to engage their mechanics. So either you have to take a general and take this once per game ability, or you have to take Horticulus and get an extra tree, but like there's no real way to like meaningfully
and you're generally taking taxi stuff to get into that manipulation.
It's all tax. It's all tax.
I have a thought. I have a question. What if the means from which you accrue contagion points was instead of it's the number of wounds you inflict or have been inflicted on within so much of a distance of a tree? Because in that way, you don't really care where the tree goes, because it's either going to launch you forward or it's going to be near the enemy to collect points. But on the flip side, you know, because the problem is I still love the idea of the trees and being rewarded for bringing more on, because I like that idea of like Nurgle rewards those who bring the garden to the realms.
Yeah,
so I want it to be something like that, but at the same time, good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
How would their game change if at the beginning of your hero phase, every turn you just put a tree on the table?
Very minimally.
Exactly. That is exactly my point. If you got a free tree literally every turn,
does it really they do now? Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
like it does. Like, but instead, not only do you not get a free tree every turn, you have to pay a cost to get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, let's just say that you get a free tree every turn. So you are bringing the very presence of the Nurgle army brings trees. Okay.
Mm.
Sure.
And then what that allows you to do is to position your army in such a way that you can maximize your points if you want to bring on more corruption by like locating yourself near trees away from enemy troops and stuff like that.
You know, an interesting, they could have an anti-corn climb on their summoning points. So what I mean by that is corn dumps everything if they do anything. Right. They everything empties if they summon anything. One of the things that could be interesting with Nurgle is like, imagine if it didn't dump, okay?
Right.
But was capped at like one summoned thing per turn. Imagine there's some kind of randomness to how you accrue the points still. Let's assume it's less complicated. And you tend to average about 7 around with some kind of swinginess, okay?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 9, but it averages to 7. Every time you hit a multiple of 7 on the chart, a new tree grows. Okay? So when you hit 7, 14, 21, and 28, a new tree grows. So you're kind of like, again, unless the random thing doesn't break with you, you will often end up with, let's say, 3 out of the 4 turns getting a tree automatically, right?
Right. Sure.
And then you still can spend your points to summon, but you don't dump them. They just keep sort of building, right? Think of them scaling almost like Big Wa points.
Okay.
Right? To just represent the corruption. But you have this hard thing if you just get to bring a thing. Like when you reach 7
you
corruption,
get one thing
a new
turn.
tree appears and you can pick one of these units to be summoned. When you hit 14, a tree appears and you get to pick one of these units to appear. Right?
I like that.
When you hit 21, you get a new tree and you get to pick, and you can pick like at this level or lower. Right?
Yep.
And when you hit 28, new tree.
I love that too. And then that speaks to this like growing corruption.
Right, the spreading corruption.
Yeah.
That feels like the summoning mechanic they should have, in my mind, right? It's still not locked in. It's not automatic. You're not automatically getting 4 summons in a game. You're not automatically getting 4 trees in a game, right? There's still some swing to it. You want it to be somewhat unpredictable because this is a dice game, right? But that still means that meaningfully you will actually be able to know you'll be able to use it in the game. Just like, by the by, when I play Slanesh, right, I can look at my own heroes and total up the wounds that I've got.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Minus 1 wound per hero and go, well, I'm going to get at least this, right?
Yeah.
Assuming no one ends up in, like, the Sword of Archaon or something. Like, I'm getting at least this, right? So, in the same way that Khorne can, like, count up their number of units that they have plus the enemy number of units and go, okay, that's, like, I'm going to get some number of that, right? Okay. So, yeah, right on. I think that feels, I agree, that feels good to me. All right. I have a thing that I'd like. I think it's what we'd all like. And that's make the Magath Lords, like, usable in some way. Find something to do with the 3 of them.
So, yeah, if we're picking out, like, I want a non-named character of that size.
Yeah. Give me a generic Magath Lord, step 1.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Let one of them be generic, right? Make a generic hero like that. Like, you can build him however you want. And he has, like, weapon options and stuff. And then make the special character Magath Lords, like, actually useful for their points. Like, it's a joke right now. You would compare, like, any of those Magath Lords to, like, the Light of Eltharion, who isn't even a hero that often gets taken in LRL armies. And it's like, he would blow through... You could line up the 3 of them, or have all 3 of them probably attack him at once, and he would probably win. And they're all more expensive than him. Okay? That's problematic, right? Like, and I don't want to use that guy as, like, the benchmark, but you can pick anything in that range. They're not delivering either the utility or the offense or the defense of what that level of hero should be doing. And I get it. Those kind of mid-range heroes can be tough. That, like, 200 to 300 per hero. But we can do better than this.
We can do better than this. Like, and I love those models. They are what pulled me into Nurgle.
They're amazing. Like, they are actually legit amazing models.
And
they creep me the hell out, but they're amazing.
I have one painted. I want to do all 3.
Sure.
Give me a reason to do all 3.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Right on. I'm gonna spin right into another one because I've got another idea that Daisy changed onto my previous idea.
I have one more as well. Go for it.
Okay. Nurgle has a magic problem. Okay.
Okay.
In that casting their spells is often tough because they have a lot of sort of high-ish, spells, like high-ish target number spells. Okay, here's what I don't want. I don't want Nurgle to just have a bunch of built-in casting bonuses.
Sure.
Okay?
Agreed.
Like, that's just what everybody runs to. Like, this is just this arms race. Everybody always does this. They have double casters, I want double casters. They have huge bonuses, I want huge bonuses. Okay, and all we're doing is just escalating up. So now the next super caster that comes out, once everybody's a double caster and everybody's got built-in +1 or 2, now that super caster comes out and they have to roll, they just automatically get 14s. They've got to be better than Techless, and they can cast 16 spells around. And it's like, okay, maybe we just wheel this back a little bit. So, like, thematically, instead, let me propose this to you. As the corruption spreads, because I'm just going to build on my previous mechanic and assume that exists. Okay.
Yep.
As the corruption spreads, when you hit those watermarks of like 7, 14, 21, and 28, right? Then certain magic-oriented things happen to your army as it gets easier for your casters to summon the magic of Nurgle as they're literally creating the Garden of Nurgle around themselves, right? Sure. So maybe at 7, somebody gets to cast an extra spell or something. Mm-hmm. At 14, all your casters get +1 to cast. At whatever. You get what I'm saying. Like, we could figure out exactly the progression.
Right.
But that gets built into the more corruption that's around you, the better your people are at making more corrupt magic enter the world, right? You are forming a connection to Nurgle's garden. That's what you said, right? You're bringing literally the realm of chaos into the mortal realms when you do that. That's what Nurgle's doing. Right. It should make sense. They're summoning Nurgle's magic would get easier, right?
One would think.
I mean, I would even settle for like what the Skaven have of just +1 to cast if you're near a tree. Like that makes equally as much sense and is also really, really simple.
Yeah.
I don't know why that dude next to a hole gets better at magic and me next to like a gateway to hell doesn't.
Because we have special Skaven have special holes. You can quote me on that, all right? No, I agree. That would be fine too. You're right. Yours is much simpler, but yeah, sure.
No. I like yours more because I didn't realize it until I read the Big Wah in the Ironjawz book that like having these things accruing in the background is so Nurgle-y, where things are amplifying. Because whether or not you kill the Nurgle army, I'm talking a little bit more like narratively here. Like the infection has arrived here. Like even if you stop it here, it's here, and so you can have it go escalate, and it makes sense. Yeah, no, it's awesome. I like it. Yes, make them do something with magic for sure.
I dig that. All right, you said you had one more. Go ahead.
Yeah, my last one's real quick is just if they're gonna rewrite the battle tome, like just add some friendly and enemy stuff, because the Nurgle mirror match is the saddest wet pool noodle fight that's ever been.
Yeah.
If you don't know, basically all the things just say like, if it's a Nurgle unit, instead you heal instead of take damage. But if you're fighting in the mirror match, okay, we're all
your special abilities don't trigger anymore. Nobody's taking all the extra damage. You're just healing the enemy army and they're healing you. It's like, oh, this
everyone's
is great.
doing the good game butt slap as a bunch of Blight Kings just smack each other in the face.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm with that. It's funny too because that's such a legacy thing from
it is. Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
That's just kind of stuck around. It's a funny thing too because so many of those legacy things are gone. Like, let me give you an easy example. A bunch of Nurgle and Skaven stuff that was more poisonous flavored, okay?
Yeah.
At various points in Warhammer fantasy history didn't affect undead.
Right.
Because you can't poison undead. They're dead. They're bones. They can't or dead or whatever, right? But that all got, rightly so, put in the ash bin of history, okay? Because, who cares? Like, Nurgle's toxins are so virulent that they work even on the undead. Like, I'm down with that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But this weird thing of like Nurgle not affecting Nurgle is one
Yes.
of these few legacy things that is just like burrowed in and stuck around. And you're right, it just makes the mirror match terrible. So yeah, I'm with that. Like it just feels like it doesn't need to be there. Right?
Yep.
Like you could just write the word friendly in front of all of
Yep.
that and it would be fine. There you go,
Yep.
problem solved. Like, yep.
Just Control F.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Replace all. Okay.
Yep.
Tom, any other final items you want to see? Anything else you want to touch on?
We can sit here in silence for 2 more hours if you just need a break.
He's got to think his way through it. Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think through like is anything really lacking? And I don't think so. Like I no. I mean I think that it's good. I wish there was a little bit more integration, I think, with Beast of Chaos.
Sure, beyond the battalion. Like
Beyond the
more
battalion.
ability to pull them in beyond just that battalion.
Yeah, like I don't know. I think that would be the one thing that I would love to see more of is like to actually have like Pestigore or some space to play in there. I don't know.
Yep, that's fair. I've got one final thing, and then we'll call it a night, which is just this. Whenever you rewrite the War Scrolls for the Spoilpox Scrivener and Slavity Bile Piper and, those people, could we make them not like hot Chinatown garbage, please?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say start over. Just don't
just literally trash it and start
delete.
over. Because
they
don't
need to be competing with Lotan.
No, they're like the coolest models. Stop the Lotan. They have hardcore Lotan syndrome. If you're one of the coolest models that Games Workshop has released in the past 10 years, and yet there's no amount of points that would make you worth including an army, you might have Lotan syndrome. See your doctor.
You would be less effective to get a free Sloppity Bile Piper every turn than a free tree. That's
Right.
not good. That's not good.
Right. Absolutely. You'd be like, no. Give me the tree. I just want the tree.
I want the tree. Ugh.
Yes.
It's so true.
And yet, like, these dudes are just obviously adorable, amazing models that should be showing up in armies. So, for the love of all things holy, when you make an amazing model, like the Scrivener or that guy, and he's a single hero with like 5 wounds, I'm okay if you make him pretty cool and pretty good, because he's never going to be that much of a problem. Stop making 25-year-old salamander sculpts and marauders from the 1990s be the best things in the book, please, and thank you. I would appreciate that. We all would. Yes, so there you go.
Yeah, well, I love when people complain like, "Oh, GW just made this unit's rules good to sell models," and you're like, "Man, they should do that for a lot of other stuff too."
Counterpoint, Sloppity Bile Piper.
Rotan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The turtle.
Can I add one more?
Sure, man.
Give me a reason to take Nurglings.
Sure, like
Agreed.
Nurgling swarms. Yeah.
Yeah, like
they fall in the same category.
Yeah.
But I just love the models. Like who doesn't love Nurglings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even I like Nurglings. I would paint a Nurgling. I love Nurglings. I would put Nurglings on my Death Guard base. Death Guard, the only good form of Nurgle. There you go. Because they lock all their grossness inside safe armor. Continue.
Well, but that's my point. Like imagine like new Nurgling units.
Yeah. I agree.
I'm in. Like
everybody knows Nurglings are so popular. You've written whole articles just touting your sweet Nurgling sculpts because you know how much we all love Nurglings.
Yep.
Like you know this, man. Just like again, it's not like I want to see rules and power correlate on some kind of 1-to-1 ratio to the sweetness of models, but I would like to see them like be loosely adjacent to each other, like where I don't feel like I'm making a horrible choice for taking this thing.
Yeah,
we've moved beyond swarms. Like that's not a thing anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
Like why can't we have a true Nurgling unit?
Sure.
Like a Brimstone Horrors style Nurgling unit.
You could even make them more like Spirit Hosts, and maybe that'd make them on the edge of playable. Right?
I'd be down for that one, but yeah, it's
like there's a version of Nurglings that are more like Spirit Hosts that are playable.
Well, it's interesting because they have like the scaffolding to be good, but the internal balance there for Nurglings is not great. So, like for example, they have a whole hero, Morbidex Twiceborn, is like super cool.
Right.
And everything helps demons, and it's all right there for it. It's just like, but they just don't work, and they just need help. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fair.
So,
Super fair, Tom. Yeah, like the Nurglings being super cool. I am very, very, very much down.
Or let me double down and say, seeing Coach say make swarms great. Yes, make swarms great. Put it on a 160 mil base.
Oh, make them really big and give them a ton of wounds.
Yeah. Give them. Put them on a 160 mil base. Make them immune to damage, and do something like that. Just do something completely over the top. Like, remember Croak's old rule? Like, if you don't do all of the wounds to them,
it just regenerates all of it.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. It's a 30 wound unit, and if you don't do all the wounds to it, it heals back up at the end.
Sure, you could go a little more reasonable. You could put them on like a 100 mil base or 130 mil round or something.
Nope,
like that.
No. I want them to literally be like part of the field. They are a terrain piece worth of nerf.
I understand. You might be a bit too far there, but I love your enthusiasm.
Yeah, I was more thinking like the Rat Endless spell from Skaven, where it's just a horde of little dudes. Like, that'd be good.
I'm tired of the low, because the problem is that if they sit in that low model count world of swarms, right, then they inherit all of those problems.
Yeah, sure.
So if they're going to inherit those problems, let's get rid of that, the moving the individual bases, and just turn them into a cloud.
Sure.
Right? And do their own thing. Right?
Sure.
Divorce out of all the multi-rule stuff and just do a huge swarms of these large bases.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let me put 10 160 mil Nurgling swarm bases on the table.
I don't think that actually fits on the table. But nonetheless,
I don't care. I want to do that and more decks in the middle. Done.
I don't know a higher note to end on than that. All right. Well, Doug, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate you being around and talking Nurgle with us. This was fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for having me. I know that my information's probably not the best because I'm not the best Nurgle player, but I'm enthusiastic.
Well, that's what we want, because it's not just that. I wanted to talk about this from all over the place, right? And just what's interesting and what has. It's not like first of all, who knows what's good in the modern world right now? Anyways, we're not playing tournaments, so I'm saying try stuff. That's what I'm saying. Try stuff and have fun. We've talked about a lot of different things I think have got potential. All right. For all of you out there who are watching, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to move your mouse over just about a couple inches and click that little like button. Clicking like helps other people find this video. It helps other people find Grandfather Nurgle. If you're a fan and you watch this because you like it, help bring others into the great grandfather's embrace and by clicking the like button. But at any rate, thank you very much for watching. We very much appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.